Hello and welcome once again to the Dr. Zeero Free Magic Secrets Show, where we investigate all forms of magic. We really do. All kinds of magic. And in recent episodes, we've been covering sexual alchemy, particularly sexual alchemy of ritual, S&M nature and whatnot. But we need to explain more about alchemy, right? So even though this would be a beginner video for a lot of people, there's still a lot of people who don't know about alchemy and what it's all about. So I just wanted to get to the complete basics here and talk about sulfur, salt, and mercury, which are the essentials of the alchemical process, right? So pretty simple. We're going to just start there. So basically, in the history of alchemy, originally there had started off with the idea of the two contraries. Now, the theory of sulfur and mercury, right? And it's an ancient doctrine. But so for a very, very, very long time, there was an alchemist named Jabir, and his version of the two contraries had dominated alchemy. And this all changed with the Swiss alchemist called Paracelsus, who reorganized the sulfur-mercury theory to include a third component called salt. He had clarified and corrected what other alchemists had been saying about these very basic ideas for many, many, many years. The result was the theory of the three essentials, which turned sulfur, mercury, and salt into powerful universal tools that gave alchemists greater insight into the nature of reality. Philosophically, the three essentials were viewed as universal forces present on all levels of reality. Their relationship and interaction determine how substances come into being and are transformed. Paracelsus defined the three essentials by how they behave in fire. Sulfur is seen as what fuels the fire, or what is changed in the fire. Thus, oil, fat, wood, and coal are all forms of sulfur. Mercury is the volatile, watery essence of the fire that Paracelsus called phlegma, and is represented by the flames, light, heat, and smoke issuing from the fire. The new principle of salt exhibits the fixed essence of the substance burning that resists the fire and is found in the ashes. The three principles from which all things are born and generated, said Paracelsus, are phlegma, fat, and ash. In the burning of wood, for example, sulfur is the wood fuel which is consumed in the fire. Mercury is the smoke, heat, and light that come from the fire, and salt is the wood ashes created by the fire. As Paracelsus put it, the fire is mercury, what is burnt is sulfur, and all ash is salt. Sulfur is the fiery solar active masculine principle that gives a substance its active properties and identity in relationship to other substances. In alchemy, it is usually associated with the sun and king. In the laboratory, sulfur is the flammable, oily material extracted from substances, such as the essential oils of plants. For alchemists, sulfur embodied all those characteristics that we now associate with the idea of active energy. Mercury is the watery, lunar, passive, feminine principle that represents the hidden essence and creative source of life within things and is usually associated with the moon and queen in alchemy. In the laboratory, mercury is usually extracted from substances by the process of distillation, such as the alcohol distilled from fermented grains and fruits. The alchemists referred to mercury as the mother of the stone and felt it was the mediator between sulfur and salt in the creation of new compounds. In Hermetic philosophy, mercury is like the basic blueprint of a thing, the carrier of its image or ideal form that comes into being through the interaction of sulfur and salt. Mercury embodied those characteristics that we now associate with the concept of light and mind. Salt represents fixity, materialization, and the formation of bodies, and embodies those characteristics that we associate with the idea of mass or matter. In their writings, the alchemists sometimes referred to salt as magnesia, which was actually a mystical term referring to the transformative principle concealed in salt. Like the first matter, salt shows up at both the beginning and the end of the work. It is the imperfect and corrupted matter at the beginning of the experiment that must be destroyed and dissolved to release its essences, so they can be purified and reconstituted into the perfected new salt at the end of the experiment. The four elements, the fundamental principles of matter, have their origin in the three essentials. The archetypical force of sulfur gives rise to the fire element. Mercury, in keeping with its dual nature, produces both the air and water elements. And finally, the salt principle is the source of the earth element. A surprising thing about the three essentials is usually revealed only at the later stages of initiation. The three essentials are not really as identifiable and set in their properties as you might suppose. They are not the static laws or immutable universal constants you assume them to be. I've already noted that salt can exist in two forms, one at the beginning and the other at the end of the work. Well, sulfur and mercury have a much more dynamic relationship. Sulfur and mercury are like two dancers who change into one another as they spin around the dance floor. These two volatile principles are sometimes so hard to distinguish from one another that alchemists believe they were actually two faces of the same thing. They named it the rebus, Latin for double thing, and pictured it as a two-headed hermaphrodite. The strange love affair between sulfur and mercury is what makes alchemical transformation possible. This unique relationship of sulfur and mercury is also suggested in drawings of the Ouroboros, showing two dragons or serpents eating each other's tails. One is dark and one is light, or one has wings and the other has feet. As the Ouroboros spins through time and space, the two parts change into one another. The alchemist viewed this as the engine that drives reality. The sulfur-mercury dynamic is most clearly depicted in the Taoist symbol of yang and yin, known as Taijitu. The opposing forces of yang and yin are shown inside a circle that is divided into a white yang section with a small black circle within it, and a black yin section with a small white circle in it. The smaller circles represent the seeds of their opposites that both yang and yin carry. In other words, each carries the seed of its opposite and eventually transforms into it. Psychologist Carl Jung called this mysterious process of one thing changing into its opposite by the unwieldy name of inandromadria. Whatever you call it, it requires a fluid mind and a little dedication to fully absorb its power. If your meditation prolongs itself, promised the Persian mystic Zoroaster, you can unite all these symbols. The kindred affair between sulfur and mercury explains a conundrum faced by most students of alchemy in their reading of alchemy texts. In some descriptions, mercury is associated with spirit and sulfur with soul. In other texts, however, sulfur is spirit and mercury is soul. We can now understand that both views are correct. The identities of sulfur and mercury depend on the situation or the context of the discussion. It all depends on where we stop them in their whirling dance. In general, sulfur deals with the energy aspects of a substance or situation, while mercury deals with the aspects of inner life and awareness. If the subject is any kind of active energy or fire, then sulfur is spirit. If the subject is any kind of potential or unexpressed energy, then sulfur is soul. On the other hand, if the topic is an indwelling life or active intelligence, then mercury is spirit. And if the subject is an unborn identity or unconscious force, then mercury is soul. Salt is the resultant force that gives expression and purpose to the dance of sulfur and mercury. Salt is the child of their marriage. It freezes the dance of opposites, grounds them, and condenses their light and energy, form, and matter. Psychologically, the principles of sulfur, mercury, and salt form a triad of transformative powers that are available to us if we can learn to purify and control them. In the body, says the Book of Lamp Sprink, there is soul and spirit. He that knows how to tame and master them by art, to couple them together and to lead them, may justly be called a master, for we rightly judge that he has attained the golden flesh. In people, the three essentials are represented by the three concepts of body, mind, or spirit, and soul. Salt is the body, mercury is spirit, and sulfur is soul. Know then, declared Paracelsus, that all the seven metals are born from a threefold matter, namely mercury, sulfur, and salt, although each metal has its own distinct and peculiar colorings. Mercury is the spirit, sulfur is the soul, and salt is the body. The soul, which indeed is sulfur, unites these two contraries, the body and the spirit, and changes them into one essence. In general, when talking about people, the easily ignited sulfur of soul stands for our inner passion and willpower, where the fluid force of mercury in spirit represents our ever-changing thoughts and powers of visualization and imagination. The hermaphroditic salt of their union is the philosopher's stone, a perfected state of consciousness that combines passion and feeling with thought and imagination. So that's your lesson from the Dr. Zeero Free Magic Secrets show today. Do hit the subscribe button. Let people know I exist. Post these videos, places where people can find them. And we will be bringing more hot rockin' topics about magic in all its forms as the time goes by. So stay tuned. The hottest, raddest, most original magic show on YouTube you can find that you don't know. So let people know I exist. So anyway, all that much said, I know you kids love them out there. Once again, as always, here's a hot rockin' outro just for you. All right, later, kids.
like